calculator work?
No.
I mean, Maria's calculator, or... And Lexi said she lost the battery cover back in like 8th grade, so it's okay.
Yeah, it fell out. It like fell out on the ground and she
Yep. All right, so the first response, number one, that one is going to get submitted on November the 4th. That's 2 weeks from today. That's a Friday. And these will all be turnitin.com submissions that would be taking place. The second one is going to be the following week, which will be November the 11th. It's fun to write 11/11 and make your wish. You can wish that they go away, but the assignment will still be there. The big thing to keep in mind, as it mentions within the first sentence, these first two writing prompts will be used for the first half of your independent reading novel. So it's not that you're expected to be done with your book within 2 weeks. The idea is that you're halfway through with your book. Now, that's going to be different points for different books, depending on the setup, the structure of your book. And if you're 47% of the way through and that's where your chapter ends, yes, I would consider that the first half of the book. But you will be doing the first writing assignment for the Friday, so that's going to be at turnitin.com. So really, you do want to have the first half of the book done, hopefully, probably more by like that Wednesday or Thursday, so that if you need to on Friday, you can take care of your journal. These are both turnitin.com, so the submission would be like 11:59 p.m. that you would have to submit. You don't have to give anything to me in class on November the 4th or the 11th. You are, and we don't really do this too often so far as throwing out like page or word requirements. Each response is meant to be 500 words in length. That's not meant to make your life difficult. That's actually meant for it not to be quite as pressure packed. 500 words, you're looking at about a page and 2/3, a page and 3/4. Most of your Grapes of Wrath essays, I would say, were probably around 1,000, 1,100 words. TWAs, and I haven't sat down and like counted your words, they're generally about 600 words, maybe 700. So 500, it's not going to take you long to get there. You don't have to give me a word count at the end of your journal. Turnitin.com will take care of that for me. Within those 500 words, or in addition to those 500 words, you have to have a works cited page, so you don't want to forget about doing that. And then you also are going to have 4 cited examples from the book. Of those 4 cited examples, at least 2 will be direct quotations. That's not per paragraph, that's for the whole entire journal. My guess is that most of you are probably going to be writing 2 body paragraphs. So, pretty simple intro, pretty basic conclusion, 2 body paragraphs. That'll put you at like your 500. For 1 and 2, they are not getting graded on an AP scale. It's just simply out of 25 points. So that first one, 25 points. Second one, 25 points. You're up to 50. When we do talk about then that third writing response that you're going to do, that'll be 50 points. So it's going to be 100 points for the whole entire book that you're looking at. But again, both numbers 1 and number 2, first half of the book only. So far as what's going to keep me from being able to read the first half of the book, you know you have a letter from Birmingham Jail for Tuesday. Mentioned that you do have 1 more packet that you're going to get next week. After that, the packet readings are done. We're not doing a book together as a class until December rolls around. So there really aren't any other big reading assignments that will keep you from being able to look at the independent reading book. I would hope that you're able to get started next week. My guess is next weekend and the week after is probably when you're, I won't say scrambling, but that's probably when the heavy lifting is going to get done.
For the last essay, the formal essay, will that one also need peer edited?
We will not be peer editing them in class, no. Most of the formal, because the only formal essay that you've done at this point was the Grapes of Wrath one, so that kind of set a precedent that we don't always do. Peer editing we don't do on a regular basis. But your final essay, that one's going to cover the whole entire book, whereas the first part you're just looking at the first half. That final essay you're going to submit on November the 29th. That's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, like when you come back from break. So the hope would be going into Thanksgiving break, you're done with the book, and then over Thanksgiving break, what might be when you kind of finish up that essay. But your last quiz, reading assignments next Friday, which is the 28th, You know, so from really the whole month of November, I don't want to say you're never going to be reading anything else for me, but you won't have any reading assignments, you know, of the quantity of civil disobedience letter from Birmingham jail while you're focusing on your independent reading.
So we cannot read through the scale.
The journals, they're not going to be on an AP 1 to 9 scale. So what that means is, if there's ever a time to try to experiment with some things, you know, from an argument standpoint, from a rhetorical analysis standpoint, this is going to be the time to do it. I don't, by no means can I go, Maggie's going to get 25 out of 25 just by submitting it and turning it in. Can't make that promise, but it should be a fairly well-scoring essay assignment. I don't see negative 37% happening on this one. The easiest ways in which people could end up doing something that might hurt their grade would be falling short on the 500 words, forgetting to do their works cited page, not having their evidence, or they do have evidence, but Sam gives us stuff from page 17, 23, 38, and 41, and I'm going, did you really read anything from the book? You know, so that scope not being appropriate. And then the other thing would probably be the to be verbs in your intro, conclusion, first, last sentence. So make sure that you're okay with your to be verbs. Make sure that you follow through with these expectations that are, you know, set forth at the top. You should be pretty good. I mean, if Vince is misspelling words, I'm going to have an issue with that because it's a take-home submission. You know, or he shouldn't be using contractions and things like that. I expect the language to still be formal. You know, you're following through with the dead word list, so Sam's still going to throw a whilst out there, or whilst, depending your pronunciation that you go with it, just like she did in her Catcher in the Rye TWA, and I will probably write boo on her next essay again with more exclamation points, with blood dripping from them, just for added effect. But if you follow through with what the requirements are, you should be in good shape. Where I mentioned this is a time to experiment, you know, the first prompt, you take a look at it, what kind of prompt is it? It's a DRQ. So, you know, maybe there is a stance, although you folks already qualified. Qualification is the one that people sometimes aren't sure of. But maybe there's something within a DRQ that you're not sure if this is the right way to do it. You don't have to worry about that potential 6, 7 essay turning into a 3 or a 4 because you blew up, you know, with it. If Megan tries something and it doesn't work, hey, we had a bell. That was like a normal ring time too. If she tries something and it doesn't work, I'll let her know, Megan, for a formal essay, you would kind of be losing some credit for this, or you wouldn't get rewarded for it. So just keep this in mind should you try it again. But that doesn't mean an automatic 3-point, 2-point, 1-point deduction from her journal. She could get a 25 out of 25 on the assignment, but that doesn't mean that, you know, there still would not be things to improve upon. But you're not getting punished for trying and it not working.
What would happen if you did fail to meet the 500 words, but like you had like 492? What did I say?
I don't hear what you said.
500
He said,
words.
is that 500?
Yeah.
It says at least 500 words.
Yeah.
499. So if you have 499.
7 points for each word that you are short, so minus 56 from 25, negative 31.
Okay.
Now, if you have any to be verbs thrown in there as well, that would also have to take into consideration 0.5 minus for each one of those. For in years past, like when I haven't done turnitin.com, like, you know, that's where you would just turn in a paper copy. I still did not want you to write it down. I can generally, I mean, the sad thing is you've looked at things long enough. I can look at most things and go, yeah, that's not going to work. Nope, that's short. I'm sure there have been things that have been 494 words that I did not question before. When there's been things where, okay, it's 460, yes, now we're running into some issues. There's not a grace period. I kind of go with it's not 500 words. So if you met all the other requirements and it was, well done, impressive, your score would not be a 17 out of 25. You're probably looking, I'd say like 23 out of 25. But I don't want you to throw in 8 words of fluff, but I would think that there's probably still more pertinent stuff out there that you could add to it that would make it better for that 25 out of 25. The one where I would say folks will probably take a little bit more so far as chances would be with number 2 when you're doing the rhetorical analysis. Because, we're certainly, I don't want to say stuck, but we're used to talking about diction, imagery, details, figurative language, syntax with diddles. This is the time that you can try using some other rhetorical devices that you might not be as comfortable using. The literary term quizzes, which are going to be starting up, part of the hope of using those literary term quizzes is to open you up to different devices that you might not normally use. There's a lot of kinds of repetition and syntax things that get mentioned. You could try allegory or antithesis. Again, it might not work well. I'll let you know it didn't work well. Next time you do this, you might want to call it this term instead, but that's not going to be, held against you so far as the assessment. So it's still formal in that, yes, you're typing word choice, things like that, but it's not meant to be as pressure-packed as might happen with a formal essay assignment.
So, like, I have a question about the first prompt. So is that just kind of like a thing where it's like what you think the author's purpose would be? Because I don't understand.
That's the intention. So when first used it, write an essay in which you use specific evidence to defend, challenge, qualify an assertion made by the text author. So you are reading which book?
19.
Okay, ooh, I'm glad you said that, because I want to mention something about it. The back of 1984 has an appendix, which I would take a look at. Doesn't mean you have to read the whole thing word for word, but they explain newspeak in 1984 in the appendix, and that makes reading it a whole lot easier to understand. So the hope, and again, you only having read half the book at this point might keep you from being able to figure it out, and that's no shame on your part. What is Orwell's overall argument that he's trying to get across through the book? So you would defend, or if you qualify, the validity of his argument. You wouldn't defend, this is Orwell's argument, and yes, I know it's in the book, and here's why, where you list it 4 times it appears, but why you would agree or disagree with the argument, like philosophically that he's trying to get across. Potentially, a person could read half the book and go, I still don't know what the argument is. I haven't figured it out. And that doesn't mean you're a poor reader. Sometimes it takes a while for those things to happen. So there's a couple possibilities. You pick an argument that you feel Orwell's trying to get across. Later on, you find out, whoops, he wasn't trying to get that argument across. I misinterpreted the book. That's not problematic. I'm not going to hold that one against you, so long as I can tell it's related. If you're going, Orwell thinks that, humans should dress up as leprechauns and dance around the earth, you don't really have a whole lot of support for something like that. If you're reading the book and you can't yet figure out what the author is trying to get across, that's why I gave you the option of characters. So you could take something that Winston, your main character, your protagonist, does in 1984, and you could defend that action. You know what? That was a smart move by him, and here's why. Or you could go, no, you never should have done that. That was terrible. That was dumb. Here's what's probably going to happen to him. You could refute, like, he should have done something, and there was a moment where there's a chance for him to act, and he chose not to act. Like using Holden Caulfield as an example, you could refute the way that he treats Sally on the date when they go ice skating. You could refute his inability to go down the stairwell and talk to Jane. So if you're not sure what Salinger really was trying to get through, you could take something that Holden or one of the other characters did and explain why you agree or disagree with that. I don't look at, I guess deep down I'm kind of hoping that you can do something with the text author, but I don't want to put someone in a position to argue a point that you're not ready for. So if you need to fall back on the character, that's fine. That's not a 3-point deduction where you can only top out at a 22 out of 25. By all means, you can still get a 25 out of 25 by doing something about the character. So I still want you to get formal practice with DRQ, rhetorical analysis, but not have quite, that pressure, the worry, am I going to do this right, am I going to do this wrong? I'd rather you try something with one of them, not quite get it, know that so you can reapply it later on, then I'm just going to play it safe and write about diction and imagery because I know how those two things work. Well, later on, you might have a passage where those two things don't work, and then you're kind of stuck. So it's a good time to experiment. The formal essay, that one will be AP scoring rubric. We'll go over that stuff as that date gets closer. It's silly for us to talk about it when you haven't read your books. You don't know what's going on. The one thing is you don't have to worry about, well, I'm doing Huck Finn, so I need to do number 4, or 1984, that only works with number 5. Purposely went with those prompts because I think all of them work with all of the books that we have.
We can tell that this probably won't end as well as it could.
Not in. I wouldn't say they're necessary. They're not all like going to be bad endings, but I would say, happy endings. Very few books probably you do read in school have that. Yay, kind of ending to it. But this one's looking at, okay, you take those endings, like even The Catcher in the Rye doesn't really have a happy ending, but still taking a look at, okay, how has some kind of, whether it be moral reconciliation, spiritual reassessment, take place. But yeah. Some folks will argue the ending of some of the books are good versus not being good. 1984, there's still some question as to what has happened at the end.
Oh, yes. I was just gonna do it right.
Okay, yeah, we'll sign that one out for you. And anyone else, I don't know if I got everyone else's one. Robert, the books are back there that you can pick, and then we can sign those out for you. Monday, we're gonna be talking about background going on in the civil rights movement with a letter from Birmingham jail. So we'll certainly be discussing some things that are kind of occurring within the text Birmingham jail, but we'll also go over some kind of historical background leading up to it to give you a better understanding about those things. Also next week, you'll get the rest of your sources that we're going to be using for the synthesis essay. Yes, the Grapes of Wrath will be one of those. So get the dust off, find it, open it up, smell it again, feel at one with Tom Goad, everything would be good.
Who's on the cover of it? Like
Of
of our book? The Grapes of Wrath.
For Grapes of Wrath,
That looks like it's the guy.
I don't, because it's not Fonda, I don't think, from the movie.
It's supposed to be Tom.
It's not, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's meant to be Tom. Because Henry Fonda plays him in the film. I don't think that's the picture. Yeah, that's not him. He is on the cover of some of them, where there'll be a picture of Fonda. But I can't say that, hey, it's from this, the 1968. But I always assume it's Tom.
It's kind of thought it was the author.
It's not Steinbeck. That part I'm sure about. That part I know.